This morning we're going to hear Matthew's call to the disciples. And all of the disciples have the call story. Last week Paula preached on John's version where it was this kind of come and see and stay and abide. And Matthew tells it a little differently. And we kind of come at something like fishing with this, sweet idea. We've got our little children's books about fishing, and we've got the real sweet, beautiful song we sang about fishing. And in the reality, fishing is kind of a really rough way to make a living. I learned that when my son, when he was in sophomore in high school, moved to Maine one summer to kind of work with, to do a sailing camp. And he came back, he was like, man, the lobster fishermen, if you cross somebody, you get your trap in the wrong place, you can die. It's a serious, serious industry. And the reality is that fishing in the early days, the days when Jesus was around, kind of the first century, was a really rough way to make a living too. Anthropologists have found these boats underneath the Sea of Galilee that have been patched 7 and 8 times. It was just a really rough industry, and it was a tough way to make a living. So we have to kind of step back and realize that the first people who followed Jesus were not middle-class Americans, right? They were peasants, people who were oppressed and exploited. And so we have to kind of try to hear the scripture from their voices too. Really, in many ways, much more like peasants do live today, whether it's Central America or continent of Africa or any place where kind of life is pretty marginal and bare bones, and just the struggle for survival is kind of the daily day bread. As Jesus walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother. And we've talked about whenever they repeat words in the scripture, it's always kind of something to notice. So the word brother, you have to be pretty dense not to figure out these people are brothers. Peter and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fish for people." Immediately, they left their nets and followed him. As he went from there, he saw 2 other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets, and he called them. Immediately, they left the boat and their father, and they followed him.